Welcome to Series 2 of the Great British Quilter podcast. I'm Sarah Ashford and I can't wait to share with you my fantastic lineup of guests over the next 8 episodes. I'll be meeting with authors, quilters, shop owners and industry professionals to find out more about them and how they contribute to the world of quilting that we know and love. A huge thank you goes to Orifil Thread, who have generously sponsored this series and helped to make it possible. Orifil is an Italian thread company specialising in superior quality cotton threads for professional and domestic quilters. With a wide range of threads in varying weights and a beautiful spectrum of colour, quilters can find the perfect thread for their project. Do visit orifil.com for more information. My second sponsor is Modern Quilt Club. Run by Lisa Naylor, Modern Quilt Club is home to a growing number of curated quilt kits, monthly sewing clubs and quilting retreats. The clubs include Sheila Christensen's Mystery Quilt, and Lisa's passion for modern bright fabric is apparent in the bold fabric choices on offer. Lisa has also collaborated with quilter Paula Steele, their debut quilt called Fractal proving very successful with many more to follow. Lisa also hosts a very popular weekend retreat based in West Yorkshire, usually twice a year, where her love of bringing people together and sharing within the quilting community is appreciated by all who attend. Do visit modernquilt.club for more information. My guest today is quilter Janet Clare. Janet studied textiles and fashion at Winchester School of Art and worked as a freelance knitwear designer for many years. She returned to textiles when her boys started school, falling in love with patchwork and quilting, and subsequently fulfilling ambitions to design fabric and publish her books. With over 20 years of experience as a designer, artist, teacher, author and quilter, Janet is a creative soul who is inspired by words, sayings and the lovely phrases that she comes across, capturing her ideas in sketchbooks, which she describes as quite literally the most inspiring thing I own. Janet has created a large range of quilt patterns, written 5 books, and designed 14 fabric collections in collaboration with Moda, one of the leading international fabric manufacturers. Her products retail in quilt shops internationally, as well as featuring on Create and Craft TV, where she appears once a month. A regular Instagram contributor and Pinterest fanatic, Janet has also embraced a virtual community of fellow creatives and gets great pleasure from sharing and discussing her projects and ideas with people all around the world. She also writes a monthly newsletter keeping everyone up to date. Janet's work features frequently in patchwork and quilting publications, and she hosts talks and workshops focusing on the design process and her creative techniques. She also exhibits, recently showing a retrospective of her work in a special exhibition titled My Stories So Far, which included over 20 quilts and a preview of her design process at the prestigious International Quilt Festival in Houston, Texas in 2018. Janet lives in a happy muddle with her family in Hampshire in the UK. Janet and I met on Zoom and we had a wonderful chat. I do hope you enjoy listening. Oh, good morning, Janet. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's really nice to have somebody new to chat to.
I know, it's lovely, isn't it? And we had planned originally to meet in person, hadn't we? When we made our plans back in November, we were hoping that this would be
little catch up and stroking fabric.
I know, and a little trip on the train, looking out the window at the scenery, but alas, no. But never mind, we're here together. So how has this last crazy year been for you?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, hasn't it? I mean, if you separate out work life and family life, it's gone from one extreme to the other, because work life has been very busy, designing patchwork fabric and writing books and patterns. People have been relying on their sewing, as a comfort, haven't they? So in some ways, the online shop has been really busy and we've had lots of inquiries, and I think people have started taking up patchwork as a hobby. So, some of the beginner stuff has been very popular against a backdrop of, teenagers sat in their room sort of 18 hours a day on a computer and, being lonely and having to sort of get your act together and think, right, what can we do today? I know, we'll walk out and see some snowdrops, and that's our main highlight
of the day.
These things that used to be nice little things that we would do on a quiet sort of Sunday morning, like go out and walk to the snowdrop patch that we know, squeezed in amongst everything else that we had going on, are now the only things we can do. So yeah, it's been one extreme to another. But I'm very grateful that I've had my sewing and this sort of, the community, and obviously as a designer and a maker, we sort of live in our own little quiet worlds anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm just really missing people.
I know, me too. Real people. I mean, thank goodness for social media and Zoom and all of the technology that we have at our fingertips. But it's just not the same, is it? It's just, you can't replace that face-to-face interaction.
No, and I think it's all that sort of energy exchange that we're missing.
Yeah,
like if we'd met up, you'd have seen something on the train or listened to a podcast, or you'd have a nice scarf on that I hadn't seen. You just don't know where all these little bursts of inspiration and energy come from. And the colour combination, even on the tube, you think, oh, she's wearing that turquoise and that looks fantastic against that sort of orange, and you don't know where it all comes from until you lose it all overnight.
That's right.
You think, and I think there's just that richness. And I said to myself, I made a curry the other night and we didn't have any fresh coriander. This is a very, very first world problem, I know. But I said to my sister, this last year, I'd have just nipped out and bought some coriander, which I know is a privilege and I know I didn't need it, but it's that extra layer of flavour and spice and interest that's missing. So I haven't been hungry, we haven't been, awful in any way, but that extra lovely layer that we took a little bit for granted.
Yes.
That added that interest.
But it's
completely vanished.
It's that richness of life, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the warmth, isn't it? It's that extra.
And life isn't just about surviving, is it? I know it sounds cheesy, but it is about thriving.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for us to thrive right now when all the joys of life have pretty much been taken away.
I know. And you just think, I used to just having a coffee. I used to text my friend Sarah, who lives literally round the corner from me, on a Thursday afternoon, go, get the kettle on, I'm leaving work early. And she used to put the kettle on and I used to walk around. I used to have a cup of tea in her kitchen and she'd be cooking the kids' dinner. It wasn't any big event.
No.
She didn't bake cakes. It was just like, I'm calling in on my way home from work for a cup of tea. Haven't done that for over a year.
No, I know, it's heartbreaking.
You could not imagine it.
I know. Well, let's hope that the worst is over and that lockdown's going to ease soon.
We've got our sewing, and that has been a real safety net for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it's encouraged a lot of people to get into sewing. I mean, there's certainly been this mask making movement, particularly when masks first came in, and people are rediscovering their sewing machines out of their lofts and people rushing out. I think at one point you struggled to buy a sewing machine. I think they were all out of stock, which is fantastic for us because that's what we want. We just want everyone sewing and making quilts, and hopefully people will progress to more creative things once they've made all their masks. But
I think so. And I think I think we will lead a quieter life for a few months until everyone's sort of, you're not going to go, all out overnight. Well, I'm not going to. So I think it will be a gradual easing in. So I think people will be looking for things to do at home.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
And here we are to provide that for them.
Absolutely. So going back to the beginning of your life, really, Janet, were you a creative child?
Yes. So my mum sews and my granny always used to sew and do crochet. And if you had fancy dress, they would make the costume. They wouldn't go out and buy it. So it's a very creative, practical house. And my mum definitely taught me to sew, but I can't remember actual learning. I think it was just what she was doing and I was interested, so I would do it with her. And gradually you learn a few tips. But yeah, very creative. My dad paints. So yeah, just very, we just always had something on the go, definitely.
And was that sort of sewing or quilting or knitting or a bit of everything? Were you just sort of
everything really? But yeah, I've got a textile degree from Winchester School of Art, and I actually specialised in knitting. I did hand knit children's collection back in the day, and had a knitwear agent straight out of art school, and designed knitting for this agency, textile agency.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and what you did was you made like a 12-inch sample square called a swatch, and you'd have to pretend that you were designing a range of knitted garments. So you'd have like a fancy rib and then a cable and a stripe and a colour work, so that the person who bought it, like Marks and Spencer's or somebody, would buy that one swatch and would be able to make a little mini collection out of it. But it was sold completely anonymously through the agent. So my name wasn't attached to it, and you gave over all of the intellectual property. So all the knitting charts and everything was gone. So I've got none of that in my portfolio at all. I've got no record of it, and I don't know who bought it.
Oh, what a shame. And it's all work.
I know, and it was really physical because I'm that old, so 30 years ago, you actually physically had to send everything in. So that it was a piece of paper. I didn't have anything on the computer. There was no emails or anything. If you wanted to talk to her, you phoned her. And she used to send colour predictions, and there was physical paper with like cut and stick bits on it.
The old days. So how did you migrate from knitting then, which obviously was quite all-encompassing for you, to sort of patchwork and dressmaking?
I did patchwork as a hobby. Mm-hmm. I'm useless at doing nothing. I don't find doing nothing particularly relaxing. So I was doing patchwork as a hobby, very, very low-key, and joined a patchwork group, Farnham Quilters, and sort of did their workshops and learnt a few techniques. And then, of course, being a designer, you start thinking, it would be nice if I had my own unique thing. And I was home with the boys and didn't want to go back to the knitwear industry. I mean, it's fashion. It's absolutely relentless. It's colour predictions, trends, deadlines. It's a real rat run. And unless you've seen all the shows and been to all the galleries and the exhibitions, it's very hard to keep up with all those trends then. It was a long time ago. You couldn't access the V&A from your lounge. Like you can.
Yeah.
I took spent more time doing the patchwork, and started one of those mummy craft blogs, and was sharing what I was making, and then opened a little Etsy shop. And I opened the Etsy shop really as a means of funding my sewing.
So pay for the fabric somehow, haven't you?
I would make a little quilt and write the pattern, put it in my Etsy shop, and literally print one at a time. If it was ordered, I would then print it there and then. I didn't have any stock, like print. I've had an order, I'll print one and get that in the post. And it's kind of snowballed from there. And I've been very lucky that my husband had a really good, secure job. So I had a lot of freedom to experiment without worrying about, could I pay the bills?
Yeah.
So, I've just built it up all those years. And now Tony has actually been working for me for the last 6 years. So he quit his big corporate job and now runs my business, which was only ever going to be a little hobby that paid for itself while the boys were growing up, because I really wanted to be home with them.
Yes. And now you employ your husband.
I employ my husband. It's very satisfying.
Wonderful.
So he runs the business. So he does all the accounts, all the ordering, all the stock, does all of that physical running the business. Which is
brilliant, because that frees you up to do all the creative side of things. Exactly. I need to get my husband, I need to rope him in to help me.
You do. So he does all the technical editing of the patterns. He's taken on a lot, and we've now got a lady called Tessa who will make all of our kits and does the dispatch of the Etsy orders, and really sort of takes some load off Tony's hands as well. So things are just growing really organically.
And he must have been on a massive learning curve.
Oh yeah. And it took him probably about 6 months to decompress from that sort of IT high stress industry. And I kept having to say to him, it's creative. We're creative people. It's a friendly crowd. You know, you'd go and give a talk in IT and people were paid to be there and didn't want to be there. Whereas if I went and gave a talk, everyone is so excited. They've actually chosen to be there and they're interested.
Yes.
And it's a completely different energy in the room. So yeah, it's brilliant. And he started, traveling as the boys get older. He's been able to travel a bit, and I hate the term lifestyle business because it's sort of patronizing, isn't it? A little, earning pin money, a little hobby. But actually it is all about building a lifestyle. So, if it's a nice day, we want to knock off work at 4:00, we will,
And that's the beauty.
We work really hard, we work 7 days a week, but it's on our own terms.
Yes. And that's what I find as well. I mean, I used to be a primary school teacher, as you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
A long time ago. And the time is not your own when you're working in a school and you've got a class of 30 children. And it's the same for me. I'm working a lot of hours now, but it is on my own terms. And if, I want to go and meet a friend when it's not COVID for coffee one afternoon, then I can. And it's lovely to have that flexibility. But then I might be working on a Saturday night and a Friday night and, but I don't mind because I love what I do. I love almost every aspect of it. I don't love doing the accounts. Maybe I do need to employ my husband. But
get your husband on that. Yeah. But I try and reframe it so that you're only really working if it's something that you don't enjoy doing. Yeah. So, if I teach a workshop on a Saturday, I try not to think, oh, I'm working on a Saturday. It's, it's something nice to do and you will enjoy it. And I can take Monday off if I want to, So we are very, very fortunate in that a lot of people, desperately trying to find an hour on a Friday night to do their sewing. The thing that makes it work is that we've always got a deadline.
Yes.
So back in the day when it was a hobby, and with my knitting now, I knit if I feel like it. There's you've got to have that jumper finished by next Friday, so you've got to put the hours in. And I know that sounds really spoiled, but there's always a deadline attached and you have to do more sewing than actually you want to. But it's no hardship. We've got podcasts and films and it's a nice thing to do, isn't it?
It really is. No, it really is. And not only patchwork, you're also a writer. You've written 5 books, is that right?
5 books, yes.
5 books. Can you tell us a bit about them? What inspired you to write them?
Thank you. So I set myself little challenges. I have a little list. And there's a quote that says, throw your dreams ahead of you and walk towards them. So my list is daydreams. And some things are absolutely ridiculous. Like I always used to like going to the Royal Academy Summer Show. And I thought, it'd be really fun to have a piece accepted into the summer show. So that's the kind of thing, like you could work forever and not get a piece in, and that is Fantasyland. And then there's things like I'd like to see the Northern Lights. Well, that's saving up enough money, getting yourself to the top of Norway or Iceland or somewhere and getting lucky while you're there. So some things are much more achievable than others.
Yeah.
But it's surprising what you put on that list that actually happens. So like writing a book, when I put it on my list 10 years ago, seemed completely ludicrous. But here we are,
Got 5 of them.
And so I self-publish.
Right.
And I looked at the sort of books that I would buy, and being a designer, I don't tend to buy very prescriptive books, make a quilt and follow the instructions and it looks exactly like that. I would be buying more what I call coffee table books where, it's full of vintage quilts and older techniques and more layers of richness. So that's the kind of way that I try and write my books. So they do have quilts in them, they do have embroidery projects, but I try to make them worth looking at on their own right. So the sort of thing you would have out on a coffee table. So I do have lifestyle-y things in there, and recipes and things like that. And it's one of my favorite things that I do, but they take a long time. So I used to write a book a year. I did that for about 3 years because I had much less other commitments. And now I've got so many other commitments, which is fantastic. But I can't do them out so quickly. So yeah, it's taken me, I've been writing my last book for about 2 years now, and significantly slowed down with, the last year, 2020 has really slowed it down, where, I just pressed pause really and trod water, kept my head above water, went home. So I didn't come into work at all in the first lockdown, just stayed at home and sort of looked after teenagers, kept them all afloat. Again, complete luxury, privilege to be able to do that. But the books, I absolutely love writing the books. And I can, because I'm self-published, I can do whatever I like in them. It's really, really good fun. So they've all got completely different themes. So there's Fred, it's about children, really. So there's little, the paper dolls where you put all the clothes with the little tabs. So it's like that. So she's a girl and she's got a whole wardrobe of clothes, and she goes to school. So there's an alphabet quilt and there's a ballet quilt and there's trousers and different hairstyles she can make boys. And so that's Freya and Fred.
Well, that's the one you kindly sent me.
Yes.
Because my daughter's called Freya. So
you had to have one, didn't you?
I had to have it, yeah, absolutely. And when she was little, when she was 3, she did a lot of the things in the book, went for picnics and she did ballet and all of those things. Yeah. And now she's nearly 12. Life for her is very different. But I love that book. It's very whimsical and, it's just beautifully written.
Yeah, we have great fun. And my friend Hayley does the graphics.
Okay.
My friend Sarah helps me with the photography, and we just... the models are our kids, it's in our kitchen, it's my place, it's very genuine and authentic. That's what we go for. And then Heart of Good Wishes about the seaside. A field guide is about the nature, everyday nature that's around us, sort of shells and feathers and leaves and wildflowers and that kind of thing. And then the last book that I wrote is called The Wordsmith, and that is about collecting and saving your memories and your sort of family stories and anecdotes and actually stitching them into a cloth.
What a lovely idea.
Thank you. Because I had the idea, being creative, you see all these lovely paper, scrapbookers and paper crafters, don't you? And they're making all these beautiful books with photographs and little bits of, I don't know, frilly bits stuck on and illustrating and calligraphy writing, and it's all just stunning. So I went and bought loads of stuff, and then I'm just not a paper crafter. I don't want to be gluey. What I do is sew. Yeah. So it suddenly occurred to me every day that I could stitch those memories. So I made an alphabet quilt, and I made it alphabetical because it's too overwhelming otherwise.
It gives you that.
It's like the whole children's life is just like, what do you include and what don't you? And the alphabet made you put silly little things in as much as the big things. So N is New York. I went to New York with them for big birthdays. My mum's birthday is the day after mine, and she is 20 years older than me. So when we turned 40 and 60, we went to New York. So N is about New York. But some of them are just about, my pet rabbit or, walks on the beach. There's not all huge, big things, but it's actually really lovely. And so that's what that's about. So the Wordsmith is really talks you through my quilt and how I went from my idea to the cloth, and really tries to hold your hand through that process.
I don't have that book, and I think I need it. I love that concept
as well. It's a really nice thing to do, and I do teach that as a workshop, and people, particularly when you've been quilting or sewing for a long time, you've got lots of techniques at your fingertips, but you're maybe really want to make something that's unique. You've all gone through that's my log cabin, that's my this, and there's a place for that as well. I'm not saying ditch all of those traditional quilts because they're gorgeous, but to make something that's a real heirloom that is unique in the world, I think is a true luxury. If I wanted a Chanel handbag, I'd just save up for one. I can have one. That's not luxurious. It's not rare, whereas
it's not unique because somebody else will have the same Chanel handbag. Hundreds of people will.
Exactly. And, but the quilt that I've made is completely unique in the world. And that is just astonishing to me. Every time I make it, I think that is literally the only one. The books are really, I do pass on my techniques and there are patterns that you can follow, but I try to give people the inspiration and the permission and the encouragement to go off and make things their own. That's what I really love to do.
Yeah, put their own stamp on it, make it theirs, not just a carbon copy of something that you've come up with. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah,
really lovely. And also, you're a fabric designer for Moda.
I know.
You've been doing that.
That was on the list as well. That was on my daydream list.
Was it?
That is crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. Because I did have textile design degree. So I did printmaking, but I specialised in knitwear.
Yeah.
So, but back in the day, we literally painted on paper and used tracing paper to put things in repeat. So that's how I understood textile design. And I talked myself out of submitting anything to companies like Moda and everything because I thought they'd all be computerized, and I don't use Photoshop, I don't use Illustrator, I don't know how to do it. So eventually my husband said, look, you don't know any of this. You're just putting, you're getting in your own way, basically. So I actually sent them from my Hearty Good Wishes book. I did lots of illustrations for the book just to personalise it. And I had all these sort of sketchbooky pages. So I neatened some of them up and sent them. I literally sent the real drawings and paintings to Moda.
Yeah.
And I have over 100 submissions a week. And the lady, the design director who was there at the time, she said that she'd love to see them all, but she can't look. So if they go in her inbox, she doesn't always get to see them because she's got a full-time job to do. And again, if you put them on a disc and post them, there's nothing attractive about, a great big computer disc or a little microchippy dongle, whatever you call them. Yeah. They're not enticing. Because she had to look at my pieces of paper. She had to look at my artwork.
Oh, so you physically sent the art?
I physically sent the artwork.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Completely cold. But she had to open it and she had to see the artwork. And then I didn't hear anything back for about 3 weeks. So I thought, oh, well, she hates it. It's all useless. What was I thinking about anyway? And Tony went, well, have you phoned her? Of course I haven't phoned her. Of course I haven't. So he said, well, you should phone her. So I actually did phone her, and she was absolutely flabbergasted to talk to me. Absolutely. And she said, the phone call was about 3 minutes long, if that. And she said, I did get your artwork. They're still on my desk. I'll have a proper look at them. And she had a proper look. And then about 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, yes, we'd like to develop them. And to this day, I send original paintings. I don't do the computer repeats. They do them.
Right.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I had to get out of my own way, basically. So I have been very lucky, but you kind of have to push that luck along as well.
Yeah.
You
have to take your chances, don't you? Yeah. You're not going to get a fabric collection if you do nothing. People aren't going to come knocking on your door. You have to go knocking on theirs. Sometimes the door opens and amazing things happen.
Sometimes, but you do have, and also like the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's also true. And nothing happens overnight. So you think, oh, I've come out of nowhere and I've got a Moda fabric collection. Well, I'd been designing for 10 years before then, you know, and so the real luck about it was that Moda they like people to have their own individual voice.
Yeah.
you know what fig tree fabric looks like, you know what French general fabric looks like, everyone's got their own style. So I sent her pen and ink drawings about the seaside, indigo and cream, very clean, very graphic, and she didn't have that. So I didn't, if I'd gone back to my knitwear design days, I'd have analysed the market trends and decided that purple flowers were in or something, and given her purple flowers. And she would have said, well, I've got that covered because so-and-so does those. So me making something for myself and sending it to her made me an individual. And I think that's a really, really big lesson to learn, particularly with all the social media around. I mean, I love the things that you do and your colour palette, but that's not what I do.
Yeah.
But I could look at your feed and think, oh, that's been really successful. Look how many likes she's got. Maybe I should design a pink and red pouch. But that's not how it works.
No. And that's it. You have to know who you are and be strong in your identity and your brand and what you're passionate about. And
what I'm passionate about. And then not get too caught up in that comparison trap.
And you filled a gap, really, didn't you? I guess then when she saw your work, she thought, actually, I don't have anything like this, and it's lovely, and I love it, and other people will.
People will, yeah. And also, you can't. I don't design pretty florals; they're still the best-selling fabric. But I do graphic prints in a neutral sort of color palette, classic color palette, so people can make them for their male family members or for to live with for a longer time. So there's space for everybody, but you have to show up as yourself, really, and that's one of the beauties about designing for Moda as opposed to the agent, because the agent, you had to do what was in trend and what they told you to. Whereas here now it's very much my own back and my own idea. So I have to design in that colour palette because that's what was missing. Yeah. So that's my colour palette, but they don't send me any trends or forecasts. They don't tell me what to design.
Because otherwise it wouldn't be you, would it? It would just be following the trends. And that's what everyone loves about your work. It's authentically you, and that shines through.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, what a dream job.
Absolutely. And do you have a favourite fabric design? I think you've designed, is it 15 collections?
Something like that. So I do usually two a year. I think the one that you like the best is the one that's new.
Right, yes.
I mean, the first fabric collection is really special because, that was unbelievable. And I went to Quilt Market in Houston and I was just completely overwhelmed. I mean, Moda gave me like a little bit of wall space, and Minnick and Simpson are one side of me and French General's like the other, and you're there thinking, I cannot believe I'm in the same space as people that I used to, think, yes, I've sold 10 patterns in Etsy, I can buy a yard of French General now. It's nuts to be in that same company with them. So it's always, but I'm so many collections ahead. So by the time it reaches the shops, it's actually quite, I finished a lot of my work that's associated with that. You've moved on to the next, really far ahead. So,
so are you working on a collection now? Have you got one?
Yeah. So I've got the blues that's behind me. I know you're only listening, people. Sorry, but the blues is in the shops now. And then I have a collection called Botanicals, which is due in England probably April, May, depending on, we've had lots of shipping delays for obvious reasons. That's due about April or May. And then the collection after that is back to a coastal collection. And I have signed off the final fabric collection and the colours and the prints. So I just signed that off last week. And I have got the collection after that called Astra, and I've got a design deadline of 1st of July. So I've always got the collection that I'm designing, collection that I'm finalising, collection that's showing to shops, which is Astra now, and a collection that's just hit the retail market. So there's always a lot going on.
A lot going on. And do you make your own samples? Do you get a lot of opportunity to play with the fabric you've created?
You actually submit your quilt designs before you've got real fabric. So you design those digitally, because it's all to do with how much fabric is ordered, and the shops need to see it really, 6 months in advance. The shops are ordering their fabric.
Yes.
And I don't make a lot of my samples because they tend to be the more commercial, easily reproducible quilts. So you're not going to make a memory quilt out of a new fabric collection that's going into a quilt shop all around the world. People can use it for that, but that's not the way you would write a pattern. So it doesn't really matter who makes the samples. So I tend to have ladies who make them for me, and I pay them in fabric.
Win-win all round.
Win-win all round. And then I will design it and use it for that. But my books don't feature my fabric collections because, of course, the fabric comes and goes so quickly, and I want the books to have a longer life than that.
Yes.
I don't play with my fabric as much as you might think I would. It's a strange little world, but I get 5 yards of every colour and every print, so I have plenty to play with. I just don't have much.
Don't have the time to do it.
No, because you're just on to the next thing.
Yes, that's the irony, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And also, you're an experienced teacher, and you teach a lot of workshops. And I know that these have had to shift from sort of in-person events to Zoom. Yeah. But what are some of the favourite classes that you teach?
I tend to teach. I don't really teach general piecing because there's so many fabulous people who do that. And the quilt shops I know like to teach the piecing and the beginner's style. So I usually teach drawing with your sewing machine, that free motion sort of thread drawing, and my fusible applique. So that's what I tend to teach, and I love doing those. And the things like the memory quilt from the Wordsmith, where people come with an idea, like a photograph or a poem, and how to get that idea onto cloth. That's what I love to teach.
Well, I sat in on one of your Crafty Monkeys workshops, and I didn't partake, but I was watching everybody doing their little free motion penguins.
Yeah, the little penguins.
And it's just amazing. I really must make the time to have a little go, actually, because you think, oh my, you just sort of said to everyone, oh, off you go, draw a penguin. And they were actually brilliant. They were so good. I was amazed. And they were also different. And that's the other lovely thing about it. A lot of the time quilting is about precision and sort of following a pattern, whereas these little penguins and all of those sort of arty type textiles that you do, they're all very individual and very unique and absolutely adorable. I love them.
Thank you. So that's what I really like. It's a bit of both. Sometimes a bit of chain piecing and some pressing is just absolutely what you need, isn't it? Because it's very sort of zen, meditative, you're just in the flow, you're just getting things done and you're making something beautiful. And sometimes I really like the challenge of, well, I've inspired by this saying, how can I turn that into something? How can I make the textile feel like that? So I think there's room for both, and I definitely don't want to imply that I don't enjoy the traditional piecing, because I absolutely do. But I just like a bit of a challenge every now and again.
And also you can incorporate it into a quilt, can't you, that type of work? So you get the best of both worlds in that sense.
Absolutely. I've got a quilt and I'm making it for, it's the latest one I'm making for my husband's 50th birthday, which was in August. So I'm running late, obviously. I haven't finished it. Nowhere near finished it. But I've made a traditional quilt block, but I've done some free motion messages. So each quilt block has got little hidden messages in there. So when the quilt's on the bed, it will just look like a yellow and grey quilt. But when you get up close, it's all our little anecdotes. And he's an Arsenal fan, so we've got things like that in it. And, all the pets we've had, obviously the children's names, dates of birth, memorable holidays, all those things. And they're all just a little stitched line on my sewing machine, but they're all there hidden. So that's the kind of thing I like to do as well, because it makes it so personal and anyone can do that.
Oh, that sounds lovely. What a lovely idea. So I can see from my Zoom screen that you've got a beautiful workshop.
Tidy behind me.
It's very tidy.
Tidy in front of me, I tell you that much.
So can you tell us a little bit about the space that you have? Are you actually at your home? Is it part of your house? Is it in your garden?
No. So we rent a commercial property. We've got the whole property.
Right.
And that sounds like it's vast. It's not. But it's a 2-story. It's in a residential area. And it used to be a print works. It is small. It's within walking distance of home. So we've got offices and stock room downstairs. So Tony and Tessa work downstairs, and I've got the whole open plan upstairs. And we can seat sort of 10 people with their sewing machines very comfortably. And I have to tidy up big time before every workshop, because if it's a flat surface, I've got all these piles. I've got like, that's book pile, that's Moda pile, that's this pile, that's that pile, it's all covered. So the bookshelves are now Zoom friendly behind me.
I bet people love coming to your space and actually working in that creative space that's yours as well. You're not in a village hall somewhere. It's the whole experience, isn't it?
It is. And also, if you're physically in the my studio, then you can use my scraps, you can use my embroidery threads, you can see what I'm working on. I don't hide anything. We just have a don't take photos unless you've asked. Policy, so they see the new fabrics before they're out in the shops, and it's all part of that's what we're missing, that in-person chit chat.
Yes.
Picking up somebody else's work and looking through their scraps. Somebody else's scraps are much nicer than your own, aren't they?
Always.
You get 12 ladies in a room that's like, her green's better than my green, and anyone got this shade of brown, and it's just lovely. And you have that energy, so we will get back to it. But it's actually, since my husband started working in the business, we were working at home, and it was just all consuming. So because we were both in it, and you're at home, there was no escape at night, and you know what it's like. The emails come in, and there's never-ending list of things to do. So being able to, I think it's only 5-minute walk up the road, but being able to come away and physically be separated from home made a really, really big difference. So,
and also I've certainly found this. I'm lucky I do have a big room, and it is in our house at the top of the house. But I just have so much stuff now. You've got your sewing machine, your cutting table, ironing board, all the fabric. You've got bolts and bolts of fabric. You need storage, and you need to be able to access things. There's no point in having it stored, but you can't easily get at it. Otherwise, it just gets forgotten. Exactly. So, no, you're living the dream, Janet, I think.
I know I am. And I don't take that for granted at all. I know I am.
So what does a typical day for you look like? Do you have a typical day?
No, not really. What I try to do, for a start, we never set an alarm. If I'm not traveling somewhere, then we don't need an alarm. So that's the first luxury.
Yeah.
Boys are old enough that they get themselves up and out.
Yeah.
They're 19 and 16, so I'm not chasing them up. So I wake up when I wake up, and we get to work when we get to work, usually by about 9:30 or 10. It doesn't matter. We're our own boss.
Yeah.
And I try and be creative before I sort of get to emails and things like that. And I try and work on my own projects before I do those for other people. But note the word try, because, it can all go pear-shaped, and I can have weeks and weeks where I feel like I haven't worked on the book and I haven't worked on my sketchbook. I've just got stuff done.
Yeah.
So there's no real typical day, but I am creative every day. I think that's the one constant. In some way or another, I am creative every day, and that's my main responsibility, coming up with new ideas and new products, because as I said with the fabric, I have to be so far in advance. What's actually selling in the shop now is work that I did 1.5 years, 2 years ago, so I have to be that much further ahead. So, but I can look at magazines and browse Pinterest and call it work. I mean, it's literally, I'm working. I'm getting ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
I call it filling the well. So, you can't keep drawing ideas out of a well. You have to keep filling
ideas in.
And
so, obviously, like we've been saying, that's been harder over the past year to fill that well.
Absolutely. I know, just things like the Festival of Quilts, that would have been 4 exhausting days, but 4 days of chatting to people about what they're making, what they've bought, seeing all the colours and all the threads and all the exhibitions and all of that. We've missed that, haven't we?
Really have. It just reignites you, doesn't it? There's something about the festival, you get all excited for it, and then you have these 4 crazy days, and I know you've got to stand there and you're meeting people all the time, and then you come away and you just have so much inspiration and you sort of feel fired up again. And we've missed that kind of reigniting of the passion. I mean, we're lucky, we are passionate about what we do, but it's events like that really coming together with like-minded people. You just can't beat it.
You can't. And also we do a lot of it in isolation.
Yeah.
And just being able to add so many people with quilts on their phones, and you go, oh, I made that. That's got your fabric in, and I made that for, my son's wedding quilt. And you think, oh my goodness, my fabric's in a wedding quilt. I mean, what a privilege, and it makes you feel really humbled to do that. So all those little connections, they'll all come back. They will come back.
And we'll appreciate them so much more as well.
Oh, we will. And the credit card's going to take a serious hit from those fabric stalls. I've been good for so long, and I need to support the industry.
Oh, it's been lovely chatting to you, Janet.
Oh, it's been good.
But before we say goodbye, I like my guests to share 2 top tips with the listeners. And I'm sure you could talk about top tips all day long, but if you could narrow it down to 2, what would it be?
Right, so my first thing is take photographs. When you're making your quilts, take photographs, because it gives you a physical distance. I don't know about you, but I'm in all the Facebook groups about quilters, the quilt groups. And so many times people post a photograph and they can see that one block that's gone in wrong, and they haven't seen it until they've seen the photograph on Facebook. So do that. That gives you some distance.
Yeah.
You can put your photos into grayscale, black and white, and then you can see whether you've got the contrast and whether it's all going. So that's a really, really big thing, and that's what I do a lot.
I've got more quilt photos on my phone than my children.
I know, exactly. But it gives you that distance, and it makes it a bit more objective for you. And not everyone's got a design wall where they can really stand away from. So that's a really good tip, and I do use that a lot. And the second one is don't point out your mistakes.
So true.
Because I have been to so many quilt groups to give talks and workshops, and they do show and tell. And you are looking at this stunning double wedding ring that's hand quilted, and the lady will be going, well, that bit went a bit wonky, and I really wish I'd used a different shade of this. And you're there thinking, it's
amazing.
Stunning. It's stunning. And of course, all you do is, start looking for what they're looking at. It's like when people used to come to the house, you go, sorry about the mess. You look for the mess. Don't make it. Yes. Don't point out your mistakes.
Yeah. Brilliant advice. Thank you. Well, it's been lovely chatting to you, Janet. Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it.
Give me a boost.
And hopefully we will see each other, because I don't think we've met properly in real life, actually.
I don't think so. I've probably waved at you at the Festival of Quilts, but I don't think we've ever spent any real time.
No. So hopefully, fingers crossed for this year, we can get together.
All right. I'll buy you a coffee and some cake. How's that for?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you. Oh, well, you take care, and hopefully see you soon.
All right. Lovely. Bye now. Bye.
Thank you once again to Orifil and Modern Quilt Club for sponsoring this episode. To keep up to date with all the latest Great British Quilter news, sign up to the newsletter at greatbritishquilter.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook.